signal now for when I'm needed. But when that light hits the sky, it's not just a call. It's a warning to them.
Yes, sir. Welcome to Beyond the Bat Signal. I'm your host, Dominic Unica. Join me as we dive into the depths of Batman's lore, dissecting the rogues gallery, and uncovering the stories of our iconic vigilante, known as the Dark Knight. Beyond the Bat Signal is a very, very proud member of the Batman Podcast Network, hosted by Batman on Film. There is a ridiculous amount of shows that I highly recommend you go check on batman-on-film.com. Awesome website. And look under the podcast section. You'll see us, and along with many other incredible podcasts, Straight Outta Gotham, Batman Book Club, and BOF itself. So definitely go check it out. Worth seeing and even listening and tuning into. You can never get enough Batman. You're a Batman fan, you can't get enough Batman. Now, thank you very much for tuning in to today's episode, where we're going to discuss Batman, The Long Halloween, The Last Halloween, finally, issue number 9, released on October 8th. But before we begin, I just want to thank each of our listeners for tuning in. And for those of you that are new, welcome. Really appreciate you taking the time to listen. You can catch any new episodes you want to on either Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio. Heck, we're on Amazon Music. So there's a whole list of them. And if you want to follow along, feel free on X/Twitter at Beyond Bat Signal. There's no the, okay? Just Beyond Bat Signal. And listen, if you have Apple Podcasts, please consider giving us 5 stars, rate and review. Even on Spotify, please leave a review, as it helps the show go a long way to supporting us and allowing us to be seen. Now, today's episode, we are going to cover none other than Batman The Last Halloween, issue 9, written by the legendary Jeff Loeb, illustrations by Chris Samney. And what cover did I get? I got the Tim Sale cover. I am always going to be sticking to the Tim Sale cover. And who's the colorist? Dave Stewart. Lettering and design, Richard Starkings, also a legend. And yeah, let's just get right into I would say, probably the best issue thus far, without a doubt. And not only that, it's the penultimate. So, and there is, and I think it's 22 pages, where there is a lot that is shared. There's a lot that is revealed. We are going to be, speaking of reveals, revealing some spoilers here. And, man, like, if you've read, and I highly recommend you do, The Long Halloween, Haunted Night, When in Rome, Dark Victory, it seems like Loeb is tying this series up with a bow. The issue is titled Guilty. So there is a flashback of Carmine the Roman Falcone, where he's celebrating his birthday on August 2nd, and it was the Roman holiday, but it was not only the birthday of Carmine the Roman Falcone, but it was also the birthday of Harvey Two-Face, where there was just acid poured right into his face. And those are the first 2 panels. And then we get into a panel where you see Alberto, and he's the one who reveals himself as the holiday shooter, the holiday killer. And Batman is setting his sights on Catwoman. And this issue, there's a lot of Catwoman in it, and I love it. I think she's such a big player in the Long Halloween, and especially in this issue as well, where she's obviously taking good care of Bruce Wayne because he got injured. But she's trying to figure out her own past and who's her identity. And last Halloween, it's pretty much come full circle where Batman's just like, last Halloween, the first victim was Catwoman. However, it appears that she shot herself. And for Batman, in his internal monologue, he's just talking, saying, like, I've been on the hunt for her, for somehow it always leads back to here, to her. And man, I absolutely love this. So we have Luisa Falcone back, the matriarch here from Italy, and she is essentially running the show at this point, where you have the mob meeting up with her, and these are all Italians. They're not Americans. These are all people of the mob right from Italy. And as it was defined in this issue, they don't care. They don't know who Batman is. They're not scared of Batman. They don't give a crap. They're here to kill. And, in the second page, you have someone in the background with a hat, and, for us, we'll obviously recognize right away who's sitting or standing in the background with a big trench coat and a hat and white eyes. None of them Batman, who's just listening in, doing detective skills, kind of obvious. And Selina Kyle is standing right beside Luisa Falcone. And right behind Selina Kyle is, I'd say, one of the more iconic photos in this series, where you have Carmine and Luisa as a family photo, but it's always been cut off. And it's like, well, why is that? And Selina's wearing pearls, looks directly at this mysterious man with white eyes. Hint, hint, it's Batman. Like, I know you're here. And Batman, with his internal dialogue, is just like, these men are not from Gotham. And Selina Kyle, like, why is she here? So Louisa's having a huge meeting, where this is why she's so grateful to come here from Rome to be here tonight, and pretty much, one, protect the family. And the interesting thing is like, Batman knows the attention is on him, because all of a sudden Selina's just like, you. And people just kind of turn around. Batman takes someone out quietly, and immediately shots are fired, guns are shot, and Batman starts attacking, trying to be in the shadows, takes off the trench coat, and these mobsters are instructed, kill him. And I think the guy who stands out the most is like the guy with the white hair, ponytail, there's a man dressed as a bat, like he's never seen him before, kill him. And Mario is just saying, stay down, mama, stay down. And Batman's on the prowl, attacking everyone, taking everyone out, and shots are fired towards Batman, and he's obviously dodging, but what didn't dodge was the huge family photo that just got basically lit up. But nice little action scene. Kind of reminds me of, I don't know, it just kind of feels like it was right from the Dark Knight or the Batman, where Batman's in the shadows and boom, 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 and just takes everyone out in the back. And there's only one mobster that kind of looks like has fear. And Catwoman eventually hops in here and just takes Batman out. And she's like, I knew you would be here. And she responds, I guess that's the same for saying thanks for saving my life. Time to go. And Catwoman says to him, he's like, these men aren't like Gotham hoods. They don't fear you. And then the dude with the white ponytail, very distinct, takes out a shotgun, and Mario's like, no, you could hit Catwoman, and he just doesn't care. And he fires, shoots Batman right on the crest, and just takes him right out. There's like a huge shot right towards the chest. You can't even see the Bat logo, actually. And Batman's falling from the top of the building. Catwoman goes to save him, as Batman's basically going to fall to his death. And she's like, I got you. And Batman's like, yeah, hold on tight, because I got you too. Takes out the grapple, and as she's holding on to Batman, she just digs her claws right into his boot. You see a little bit of blood, and you can see the pain from Batman, just uncomfortable. And he's asking her, are you all right? And she's like, I think that's my line, which I thought so too. I was like, you're the one who got shot in the chest. And let me tell you that these panels, like this issue for penultimate, especially the one of where it's a 2-page spread, beautifully drawn by Chris Samney, and Batman's basically falling, and Catwoman goes and reaches for him. I just absolutely love this, the way it's drawn, where it has like the orange coloring of the lights, and just like it just feels that obviously the noir vibe that they kind of always just have consistently with the Batman Long Halloween series. And it's just beautiful where Batman's just about to fall and Catwoman's going to reach for him, and he's like basically saying like, listen, give me your hand. And she's like, please, cats have been climbing up things forever. Kind of like the humor with her, because she's obviously calm and relaxed with a smile, while he's seems like a little bit uncomfortable. And they're about to kiss, and she's like, while bats on the other hand are supposed to be able to fly, you don't happen to have a jetpack on you, do you? Because you can't fly. She's like, or are you just happy to see me? And he's like, I saw your medical report. It just feels like just right out of Batman the Animated Series, where Batman's just all business. And he's like, I saw your medical report on Halloween night. You shot yourself in the leg, and I want to know why. Now, on this issue, all things are revealed. Not everything is revealed. Catwoman doesn't want to reveal anything to Batman, so she cuts the grapple. They go right through glass, so she's willing to just like say, screw this, going to go right through a window. Batman, blood all over his face, and he's just like clearly injured, and he's like, you know who Holiday is. Why am I on the wrong side? And she's like, here, you're gonna hear some things about me that I don't want you to know. And she's like, or maybe I want you to hear it only from me, but not yet. And Batman's just like, what the hell? Like, he's just sitting there, and Catwoman just, pounces off and exits, like, as she typically does. And Batman's obviously really injured, blood all over his face. And then we get back to Arkham Asylum, where for months Catwoman chose to remain in Arkham Asylum, and Batman's just trying to figure out, like, what is it about Catwoman? What's the secret that she's hiding? And then there's the doctor who has his hands up, and he's like, listen, you can put your guns down. I have everything laid out just like you asked. And then he has this panel of all the criminals, Catwoman that were shot too. Catwoman, Penguin, Riddler, Joker, who's the other one? Calendar Man, and Solomon Grundy. So got all the criminals. And who shows up with a gun towards the doctor's face, or the surgeon, is Harvey Dent, Two-Face. And he's like, this isn't why I came to see you. How did you come in contact with Gilda Dent? He wants to know why he came in contact with Gilda Dent. And then he's like, I'll decide if it's everything. maybe twice as many. And then there's more, as you have Freeze, Ivy, Scarecrow, Mad Hatter, Tweedledee, and Tweedledum. And he's like, she found me. So slowly things are coming, they're unraveling like an onion peel. And he's like, I mean, she said you wanted me to keep her up to date regarding your condition. He's like, my condition? Let's talk about her condition. How many months is she pregnant? And then Harvey, oh buddy, oh pal. And who steps in? None other than Joker. This is the only thing where I'm like, the way he's drawn doesn't give me Long Halloween vibes. Don't really like how he was depicted here. Not a fan at all, actually. Yeah, just not a big fan. But that's okay. Like, I mean, teach their own. Still looks like the Joker regardless. So Harvey's got a gun right to Joker's face saying, Harvey Dent is dead. And I love the response that Joker has. He's like, yeah, sure, fine, whatever. Two-Face, okay. Heard you were in the house and not unalive, so I thought I'd drop by. And then Joker says, like, say, look, at this crew you've got assembled, only you still want me to participate? No double crossies? I get Arkham. And Joker's like, yeah, we're going to flip on it. And Joker says, shake on it. And they shake and there's a deal. And then here Robin kind of discovers something. And, Batman's been on his own for a couple of issues where Robin's just staying back. And we don't really see Robin in the last couple of issues. And in the cave, that's where Robin's been doing his work. And Batman mentions that. He's like, for weeks now, I've been trying to keep Robin out of harm's way. And Dick's like, what happened to you? And he's like, Catwoman. And Robin's just like, oh, that explains everything. Should I go get Alfred? And then in a moment, I have been reviewing your homework on Mario Falcone. I find out that where he was after the house burned down and before he returned to Gotham City. So just like Batman, Dick's putting in the work and doing some little detective work, and I love it. I just love it. He's like, I know this place, Nantucket. So Robin's like, I cross-referenced. Oh, this probably is music to Batman's ears, where he hears, I cross-referenced any other patients that might have had contact during his stay. Nothing, but there was an escape. Registered as Grace Powell. And then all of a sudden, the name Gilda Dent came up. She must have picked a random name to hide her identity. And then Batman responds, you're too young to have known Powell was Gildan's maiden name. There must have been security footage on the escape. Oh, man. So right away, like, they're kind of slowly, like, uncovering, like, these little reveals. And then there's video footage that is brought up. And he's like, this is over a year ago that I've watched 100 times. She runs to the boat and then Batman just says, freeze and enhance this. And enhance it even more. And then you got the two fake FBI agents. I don't know if you guys remember the FBI agents that were part of, that were in the car and then we thought were presumed dead. And also worked, yeah. Anyway, they're Edwards and Sullivan. And who else is in the boat is Gilda Dent. So two FBI agents with Gilda Dent. And Robin's just like, how could I miss that? He's like, sometimes when you're focused on one thing, you miss what's right in front of you all along. And Batman just says, Mario Falcone and the Dents have been on this together from the start. So they're all working together. And that's one little reveal. That Gilda is working closely with the Falcones. And then we go back to the Roman's penthouse. And there is a much different photo than what we see. Obviously, it's all shot up. And then you have Louisa just sitting there. And it says, when I was at the Roman penthouse, I noticed the painting. Catwoman had been so determined to steal what She returned, and it was larger. The bottom had been restored, revealing, question mark, a baby? I don't know. And Catwoman just says, so it's over. So as we know, Catwoman wanted this painting. And she just says, without that painting, you have nothing that I want. So I can't give you what you want. And Louisa just responds, I admit today didn't go as planned, but I thought on my husband's birthday it would have been appropriate to tell them all the truth. And she continues, she's like, I'm just grateful you interceded. However, I can't help but wonder if you removed Batman from my home or you saved his life, you're going to have to decide which side you're on. And Catwoman just says, I'm always the side I'm on. Yes, but your side is ours. And Catwoman just responds, is it? He's part of Gotham City. If you want to succeed here, you'll have to take that into consideration. I didn't come here to discuss him. I came here to say goodbye, Louisa. And here's where things get interesting and reveals are made. So buckle your seatbelts, get ready, and here we go. Louisa says, do you really believe that I could let Carmine Falcone win? How can you not understand that in destroying your life, he also destroyed mine? You heard the story in Rome, and then all of a sudden, and she continues, how he took my baby from me simply because she was a girl. And Catwoman's eyes just kind of light up. Louisa continues and says, they sent me to a convent for my own protection. I left Carmine not for my own protection, but for yours, in case he ever learned the truth. You bring me what you stole from the Vatican, and I will give you all the documentation you've been searching for. Catwoman says, how do I know when I give you the ring, that very special ring, you then won't just have me killed? And Louisa just says, because of who you are and who you've always suspected who you were. Selina Falcone, the lost heir to the Falcone family. And right away, Selina Kyle, Catwoman, just drops her guard, takes her mask off, and says, is that the truth? And Louisa just says, I never want to lie to you ever again, with a big hug and an emotional Selina. And then she just asks, like, what about Mario, the son? And Mario's like, Mario's going to do what Mario's going to do. My question is what will my daughter do? Which is a very, very big question. But the story doesn't end there. There's still a little bit more to be revealed as we continue. And you got a little shadow of the Batmobile parked right in front of Harvey and Gilda Dent's house. He's like, on Christmas Day, I found Jim Gordon's kidnapped son here, unharmed. And still, there was like police tape, like just basically do not enter. And he's like, since then, it's been marked as an active crime scene at my request. So Batman and Robin show up, and he's like, Robin's just like, why are we here? What are you looking for? And right in the shadows, you see, it looks like Gilda Dent's in the back with a gun, being ready. And Batman just says, like in his internal dialogue, sometimes when you're so focused on one thing, you miss what's right in front of you all along. Gilda Dent was here that night. She was holding a .22 caliber pistol. Powell was Gilda Dent's maiden name. I was here focused on finding the boy, Robin, aka he was focused on finding Jim Gordon's son. But once I visited the Roman in his bedroom, despite all of his power, the fear that made him seem very small as his empire grumbled, it was the night he named that year the Long Halloween. And then there was like a little panel where it just goes kaboom. Obviously, it's raining, there's thunder, and Mario's a little frightened. He's like, who's there? Speak or you're dead. And they respond, holiday. And Mario goes, which one of you? And then Holiday responds, the only one that matters, with a gun and in a trench coat. And who takes off the hat and comes out through the shadows? And it is Gilda. Mario says, you shouldn't have come here. If anyone sees you. And she just says, he knows. And Mario's like, what? Who knows? Gilda's like, Two-Face. No. I shot him in the head. Just like we planned. Whew. She's like, yeah, Harvey Dent is dead, but Two-Face is still alive, and he knows about us. And the baby. Dun, dun, dun. And that's the end of the issue. Which is quite the reveal. So curious as to where or how this is all going to wrap up, because there's obviously a lot of questions to be revealed for issue 10, which is expected to come out in October 28th. So just 12 days from the time of this recording, which is October 16th. And I can't wait. I feel like this series, The Last Halloween, is going to be much better collected. I've really enjoyed this noir feeling. Like, when it comes to it, it feels like such a mystery. There's still stuff that's been revealed, and there's still stuff that we need to discover, and how this is all going to wrap up. Man, I wish it could continue, because I'm really enjoying it. And but yeah, Jeff Loeb obviously keeps his foot to the pedal. He keeps it still feels like that same Long Halloween vibe. Chris Samney does a great job on the art, picking up where I want to say, what's her name? It's off the top of my head. Becky Cloonan, that's it. And which, honestly, if you want to talk about who's done probably the best adaptation thus far, I'd say Becky Cloonan, and then along with Chris Samney, both phenomenal jobs on the artwork. That just keeps, for me, engaged. When it doesn't have that Long Halloween vibe, I'm kind of taken out of the story, and I'm kind of like thinking, well, okay, does it have the same? I don't know. It just kind of takes me out of the Long Halloween. I feel like I'm reading a different comic, and I don't want to feel like I'm reading a different comic book. But yeah, looking forward to issue 10. Really curious if you guys have picked this up, and if I don't know what your thoughts are on the story so far. Like I said, I got the Tim Sale cover where it has Catwoman and Batman drawn by Tim Sale, sticking to it. And it looks like, because they generally they'll showcase the cover of the next issue for issue 10. The next one's going to be Matteo Scalera. Ooh, that's a big name. And the cover looks pretty fire, where they have the entire Batman Rogues gallery just in the background and Batman dead center. Can't wait for this issue to come out, and definitely looking forward to it. But yeah, my overall thoughts, I think when it comes to just like how they're tying everything in with the Long Halloween and even Catwoman When in Rome, I thought was really, really well done. Now, when it comes to When in Rome, that reveals, it's an interesting storyline, because especially for Catwoman, where she, for Batman, he was kind of defined by the loss of his parents' murder, and he's driven for a need of justice. Whereas Selena Kyle, she's defined by not knowing who her parents were, and she's driven by a need for identity, especially within this Long Halloween series. So both are orphans in Gotham, but in different ways. So she stands beside Batman, but also against Carmine Falcone. So that's one thing, but it's it's just slightly different, right? Her actions versus Batman's actions are very different, and what they consider to be heroic. But it gives more of an emotional authenticity for Catwoman, just as to why she's drawn to Batman's moral crusade, and yet she doesn't want to fully just join in on that, because she's still trying to figure out who she is. And obviously she doesn't want to be in Carmine's shadow, and she doesn't want to be on Batman's mission, but she's trying to figure out her identity. She knows who Catwoman's identity is, but like who her parents are, where she came from. So just some quick backstory, because it's like you may be wondering, well, okay, well, if she thinks she's a Falcone, then like how did she get the name Selina Kyle? Well, at the orphanage, she was raised by Maria Kyle, right? And but there's that connection. She's completely drawn and saying like she feels like she's Carmine's daughter. So through a bunch of conversations, like it's still like the story's like a little murky, and that's why she's like, I need the documentation, and Louise is going to give it to her, but in exchange there's that ring. Okay, so the revelation is more emotional. There's no forensic evidence at this point, but by the end, you know, she doesn't have that proof. She just feels like the truth that she's Carmine Falcone's daughter, and you know, it's less about proving that she's in the bloodline, but more accepting that her identity isn't necessarily defined by her parents, but who she chooses to be. But yet she still is fishing and wants to know, which rightfully so. She wants to know where she came from. She has no idea. I don't know. I just thought that was beautiful. But like the significance of the Vatican ring and what that means, you know, the Falcone ring that Selina steals is symbolic, right? Like, you know, for the gold ring that belonged to Carmine, supposedly came from the Vatican itself, which, you know, obviously, you know, you take something from the Vatican. Like the Vatican, it has this like holiness, this tradition, this long-lasting legacy that's lasted centuries, right? In other words, basically, it's like, you know, I don't know, like, and then you have it on the mob leader. It's kind of, I don't know. But, and then there's also like the power, the symbolism behind this. So for Selina, like the ring represents her link to the family that she's trying to understand, that she firmly believes that she's connected to, and obviously drawn to. Yet, you know, the Vatican kind of just like, I don't know, it just adds that contradiction. Like, you know, you're stealing, you're doing all these bad things, yet you're trying to be holy in an unholy family. I don't know. But with all that being said, I want to try to confuse. I'm just trying to summarize, like, well, what the connection is with Louisa. And she's going to say, like, I have all the documentation you need. So, and then she just, like, and then say, in exchange, I want that ring. And that ring is the symbol, mostly. But for Selina, it means nothing. It's just power that she holds over the Falcone family. So, in exchange, just, I'm kind of curious if Selina does get her closure. We'll see. And those are one of the big question marks, and how this is all going to wrap up in issue 10. And I can't wait for all of that to come in to play. So, but we'll see. Anyway, I think that's about it for this episode. I'm going to wrap it up here. So where can you find me? If you want, reach out on X/Twitter at BeyondBadSignal. Shoot me an email at BeyondTheBadSignal@gmail.com. Until next time, this is Beyond the Bad Signal, and we are signing off.